Hello, I'm Patty, the girl with blue energy. I also have bipolar disorder and ADHD, and I make videos about mental health. So today's video is titled, Arguing with a Bipolar Person, Why We Like Fight or Fa-la-la-la-la Nights. So I've called it fa-la-la-la-la because I don't really know how YouTube feels about swearing. But I do know that people in bipolar relationships tend to have a lot of fighting and a lot of fa-la-la-la-lying and a lot of fighting followed by fa-la-la-la-lying. We tend to have passionate and volatile relationships. And this is something that I don't think that gets really talked about. And I'm trying to talk about some of the symptoms that are uncomfortable to talk about for me, that people may feel ashamed about. But the things that I think most people with bipolar disorder experience, and how to help if you're bipolar or you're in a relationship with someone bipolar, how to handle fighting during your relationships. So that's what I'm talking about today. Why we love fight or fa-la-la-la-la nights. Why do bipolar people fight so much? And what should you do if and when you're arguing with a bipolar person? How do you handle this? So I'm going to discuss all the reasons why I think bipolar people tend to fight with people. And it's not just with their partners, but if you're in a relationship with someone, you're going to see it the most. So one of the reasons is because we're passionate people. Bipolar makes us highly motivated sometimes, and when we're hypomanic or manic, we're more inclined to feel overconfident. And for me, this is when things that you might say that irritate me, like little things that just annoy me that I normally would just say, let go and say, this isn't worth fighting over. This is when I feel feisty. I feel confident and I'm going to express my feelings. And you, as my partner, are going to be like, why is she starting crap? Why is she acting bipolar again? We don't feel like we're acting bipolar. We feel sometimes like we try so hard to regulate our emotions. And then when we're manic or hypomanic, we feel really confident and self-assured. And we're going to tell you how we feel. This is when we're going to speak our mind, speak our piece, and tell you how we feel. And sometimes we have a heightened sense of confidence, and we may not even realize that we're being insensitive or jerks. We just blurt stuff out. So that's one reason, because we're hypomanic or manic. Some people do this when they're depressed. For me, when I'm depressed, I'm usually really, really quiet. And this is not when I usually have confrontations. I usually have them when I'm manic or hypomanic. The second reason why we start fights is because we're irritable. Anyone that knows anyone with bipolar disorder knows we have moments when we get irritable. My son used to call it argutable. So we get irritable. And some of the reasons are because we get tired. We get really, really tired. There are a lot of physical symptoms that come with the mania and the depression. And this is why our sleep schedules are so important. So if you have a relationship with someone who's bipolar, it is important that you support them and encourage them to go to bed at night and get up at the same time and have some consistency with their sleep routines. This isn't the person you want to stay up all night partying with, listening to music, and doing that sort of thing. Even though you probably like to, and they probably like to, it's important for bipolar people to have some structure and routines, particularly with your sleep. And you may find, if you watch your bipolar person, that when you fight, it's usually when they're really tired and irritable, either because they're manic, depressed, or not getting enough sleep. Those are two reasons. Or they're drinking or using some kind of substance. Those are bad combinations for people with bipolar disorder, because they cause us to be a little bit more impulsive, let our inhibitions down, and just say things, blurt things out that we might not otherwise say. And I don't want to get into like substance abuse and things like that because I'm talking about bipolar disorder. But if you have someone in your life that has bipolar disorder, it is important that you support them on getting enough sleep, because if they don't get enough sleep, they're going to be cranky and act like a 2-year-old toddler and have a temper tantrum or act really irritable because they need sleep. And that has always been a symptom for me, even when I was a little child. Another issue with bipolar people when we fight, and I'm bringing this up because this was not something I was ever aware of until honestly recently, when I started really putting some research into bipolar. So we're gaslighting, or you're gaslighting. If you've ever had a fight with a bipolar person, you might accuse them of gaslighting, or they might accuse you of gaslighting. Something I want you to understand about people who have bipolar disorder is that we do sometimes have cognitive impairment, especially when we're manic. Our brain starts moving so fast and ticking along. For me, I sometimes skip words and don't even realize it. And I've realized after having this disorder a long time that I sometimes say things and don't even remember saying it. And I used to think that my partner was gaslighting. And I had an experience one time where I said something and I was certain I didn't. I would never say that. Why would I say that? And I happened to have been in a room with some other people. And so I asked a person, and she was a neutral person, not somebody that would be inclined to just lie or take his side or even know what it was about. She said, "Yeah, you did say that." And I'm like, "No, I didn't." And she's like, "Yeah, you did." So I want you to know, both if you have bipolar or if your partner has bipolar, that sometimes we have cognitive impairments and don't remember things we say during a manic or hypomanic state. It doesn't mean we're gaslighting. And I don't want to make that as a defense, because there could be gaslighting in your relationship. You have to watch patterns in your own relationships. But we do sometimes have cognitive impairments. So if you think your partner is gaslighting, or they're saying that you said something you didn't say, or they didn't say this, or whatever, keep that in mind. And instead of arguing with them about who's right and the truth, just say things like, "I understand how you feel," or, "I don't remember it that way, but I can see how you feel that way." Don't make a big deal about it, because in a lot of cases, it's more of a cognitive issue, and we're not actually gaslighting. We just don't remember things correctly. Another reason why bipolar people like to fight, and this is going to sound really silly, but we're bored. We like excitement, and sometimes consciously or unconsciously, we create drama because we need some excitement in our lives. We also are hypersensitive, so sometimes we don't handle your criticism very well, but keep this in mind. Even if we're hypersensitive, a lot of us will take your feedback in, and we will eventually calm down and be able to accept what you have to say or handle it better. So understand that we're hypersensitive, but it doesn't mean that you shouldn't express your feelings or feel safe to tell us how you feel. You just have to do this carefully. And one of my recommendations is to wait till your partner or friend is in a more calm state before you have discussions that could lead to an argument or something volatile. We can have healthy arguments, but we probably won't when we're hypomanic, manic, or really depressed. Another reason why we fight, and this goes along with the fighting and the fa la 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 la, is we have issues with hypersexuality, which I'm going to discuss in another video, because I think there's a lot of misconceptions about hypersexuality when it comes to bipolar. For me, it's not a sex addiction. I'm not promiscuous, but I do have issues with hypersexuality. And when we're having these issues, we are sexually frustrated and irritable. And who are we going to take that out on? You. If you're our partner, you're the one we're going to take it out on. We're going to be frustrated, we're going to be irritable, and we're going to be cranky because we're having this frustration, and it doesn't matter how awesome you are. I don't know how to explain it. I'm going to try to do that in another video, but it's a frustrating feeling, almost an uncomfortable, frustrating feeling. And we can take that out on our partners. And secondly, along with those two lines, sex and fighting help us to get out our intense emotions, and they give us a release for it. And I think that's a big part of why we crave sex and why we get into fights, because we need to get it out. We need to get that emotional release and get all those feelings out. And we kind of sometimes have bad coping skills as far as, sex is something that I think is a stress reliever for everyone, even healthy people. It's a stress reliever. We just tend to need it a little more, or want it a little more, to release that dopamine, to boost our mood, and to help us get our emotions out. So keep that in mind as you're watching this video, that for us, those two things are ways that we self-regulate and get our emotions out. We have really intense emotions, and for us, the fighting and the sex help us to self-regulate. And here is my final big reason why many of us fight and have fights a lot. A lot of us that have bipolar disorder came from dysfunctional homes where fighting was the norm. That's what we saw regularly. We saw our parents fight. We saw our family members fight. There was always some kind of drama and fighting going on. And for us, that is what feels normal and safe. We don't relate with people who come from homes where people don't fight. We don't even know how to get along with you. You feel weird to us. We are used to fighting. And for me, and I think a lot of bipolar people, fighting makes us feel loved. If you don't fight with us, then you don't care about us. You don't care enough to fight with us. Like, you won't fight with me. You don't love me enough to fight with me and for me. Fighting is equated with love for many of us. So if you have a bipolar person, understand that this neurological pathway, I don't know exactly what the right scientific words are, but this is normal for us. It's a pattern we've had since early childhood. So unlearning it and breaking those patterns of fighting to release emotions and feeling that fighting is the norm, that takes time, that takes therapy, counseling, and actively working on managing your mood disorder and handling your communications with your partner better. That takes practice and work, and it takes a partner who's also putting in the work to help you deal with your emotions and handle your feelings better than just screaming and yelling and having tantrums. The next big question is, should you argue with a bipolar person? And a lot of you might be thinking, nope, don't argue with a bipolar person. Just avoid them. Walk away. Don't argue with them, because unless you want some crazy woman slashing your tires or yelling at you or throwing stuff or crying or having a fit, just don't argue with them. That is not how you have a healthy relationship. Healthy relationships do have confrontation. They do have arguments. So it is important that you don't avoid fighting with your bipolar person. It's important that you do it in a healthy way. And, I'm not a therapist or trained mental health expert. I'm just sharing my personal tips. I think it's very useful to talk to a therapist on ways to handle arguments in healthy ways. But I'm going to give you some of my tips for arguing with a bipolar person in a healthy way, how to avoid the arguments and how to have better, more healthy arguments. So the first thing is to be proactive. You need to support your bipolar person on being consistent with their routines. Eating healthy, eating 3 meals a day or 2 meals a day, however they eat, eating consistently. I follow the ketogenic diet because it helps me a lot. Sleeping consistently. Support them on this. I talk about this a lot because it is the one thing that has really changed my life. Is my bipolar disorder is a lot more manageable when I go to bed at the same time and get up at the same time. You can't always control what your partner does, but supporting them by not saying, hey, let's stay up all night watching movies when they really are tired and need to get some sleep. So be proactive and support them on what they need to be doing to be mentally stable, taking their meds, seeing their doctor, seeing their therapist, and getting their sleep. Now, even if you support your bipolar person immensely, you're still probably going to have some fights. So here are some other tips. When you get into an argument with your bipolar friend or partner, you need to stay calm. It's important that you communicate with them gently and calmly and reassuringly, and that you manage your own emotions, because if you're not managing your emotions, it's going to be even harder for them to manage theirs. And this can be easier said than done, because we are volatile and explosive and can affect your emotions with our emotions. But the calmer you are with us, the easier it is for us to manage our own emotions. So if you're in an argument with a bipolar person, try not to raise your voice. Try not to be aggressive or get into their personal space, but talk calmly to them and think about it as the fighting is going on, to consciously manage your own emotions, because that will help them to stay calm. I know this is easier said than done, but the more you practice it, the better communication you both have. One of the biggest reasons why people have so many fights in bipolar relationships is because our partners are, quite frankly, scared of us. They don't want to deal with our volatile emotions, us having a fit, us crying, us raging, us storming out of the room, things like that, because we are volatile, we're hypersensitive, and really emotional. And a lot of times, instead of discussing things with us, they will just bite their tongue and bottle it up. And this is not a good thing, because nobody can bottle up their feelings forever, nor should they. So if you're with someone that has bipolar disorder, it's important that you communicate how you feel, but you need to do it gently and sensitively, because we are really sensitive. If we hurt your feelings or upset you or ignored you or made you feel we didn't care, we weren't listening, things like that, tell us about it. But pick your battles. You know, you can't always, sometimes you need to let things go. If it's not a big thing that's affecting your relationship, if they just annoyed you at the grocery store, you don't necessarily have to bring this up. But if there's things that are causing problems and tension in your relationship, don't let it build up. Don't hold your tongue. Communicate with them. Communicate with them gently. It may take some work for the two of you to communicate, but it's important that you communicate and not hold your feelings in, because that's just going to make the fighting worse. You need to express your feelings in a healthy way and let them process it, because we do listen. Sometimes we have a delayed listening. We don't acknowledge that maybe you were right until much later, but we do listen. This is a big one, and this goes for people who have bipolar disorder or people who just are in a fight. It's a useful tool for de-escalating things. Validate their feelings. When someone has a fight with you and they're telling you how they feel, a lot of times all they need is for you to validate their feelings, to say, I understand why that hurt your feelings. I probably shouldn't have said that. Or I understand how you feel. I don't feel the same way, but I can see why that upset you. Things like that. People want to know that you understand how they feel. This isn't the time to throw out, you're acting bipolar and crazy again. This happens to us a lot. People are always telling us, there you go, acting bipolar again. Like, we know we're bipolar. We don't need you to throw it in our face when we have a fight. That is a surefire way to add fuel to the fire and make a fight worse. Do not throw bipolar into a fight. Repeat that. Do not throw bipolar into a fight. Listen to us. Validate our feelings. Express your own feelings. And if you're the bipolar person, try to validate your partner's feelings. Try to understand that they're dealing with your ups and downs and doing the best they can with it. This is my final tip, and I think it's the biggest one you need to know if you are with a bipolar person, living with a bipolar person, dating with someone bipolar, have a parent, sister, brother, whatever. Let us self-regulate. So sometimes that's an ugly process. Sometimes we have to get every last word out to calm down. Let us talk and talk and talk. It's going to be nerve-wracking, but when we've gotten all of our emotional energy out during a fight, we will eventually calm down. Now, I will say, you may need to set boundaries. If your person is affecting your mental health, is volatile, or you don't feel safe, you can get up and leave. If you don't feel safe, if you don't want to be around it, we're not going to like it. We're probably going to follow you into the other room. But you can set your own boundaries, because honestly, when it comes to fighting, each person has to take care of their own emotional needs. And if your bipolar person is causing too much emotional strain in your life, it is appropriate for you to set your own healthy boundaries. Now, this is the last part of my video. I call these fight or follow la 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 nights, and I can almost anticipate when they're coming, when me or my partner are on edge, or the tension's there. It either results in passionate sex or passionate fighting. So why do we crave sex after a fight? First of all, I think this is a pretty normal response for anyone, whether you're bipolar or not. It's a comforting act that reassures you that you didn't totally just screw up another relationship by acting bipolar. It calms you down. Sex is a stress reliever. It lets out all these endorphins and adrenaline. It makes you feel better, and it also makes you feel closely connected to your partner. The unfortunate part about us in our fight or cycles is that we can get into bad relationships because that bonding, that fighting and sex bond keeps us in a relationship that's not healthy. Both healthy arguments and good sex are great for a relationship, but if your relationship is just full of fighting and make-up sex, it's probably not all that healthy. So, one of the things I want to know from people watching my videos, is this something you see a lot in your relationships? How do you have healthy fights and healthy communication? Either as the bipolar person, how do you keep things calm and communicate in a healthy way? And if you're the partner of a bipolar person, how do you manage the arguments? And do you find any of my tips helpful or relatable? So this is my video for today. I'd really love to hear what you think. I'm going to be making some more videos like this in the near future, and I appreciate all you guys that support me and follow me.